Hi everyone, I can see people joining in. Let's get the chat going. If you wouldn't mind, just type in where you're dialing in from. I say dialing in, of course nobody dials in anymore, do they? Where you're tuning in from, that sounds like a radio station. Just type into the chat where you are. Logging in from, that was the word I was looking for, wasn't it? All right, so you'll see down the bottom there's a chat that looks like a little bubble. You can put things into there, or you can put stuff into the Q&A. I don't mind either way, I'm keeping an eye on them, but type that in. You can see we've got people joining us, which is good. And the other thing that'd be really important before we get going, I just want to check that. There we are, Melbourne. Thank you, Vanessa. You win $100 million. You're the first person to enter that into the chat. How is it in Melbourne today? I guess I gather you're only days away from potentially, let's call it scaling back the lockdown. I don't know if it's quite a case of switching it off, but I was just speaking to someone in Melbourne yesterday. All right, come on, you others. I can hear from Vanessa, but what about the rest of you? Type into the chat where you're from. I don't think I'm asking you to reveal the location of the crown jewels. Let's have a look. The other thing, Sam, once we get cracking, we'll just give people another minute to get in, is I'll just get you to confirm that you can see my screen okay. Just let me share that now for a second. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, that's great, Angus.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. Well, we've got a bunch of people joining us. Marcus, welcome from Melbourne. Okay, that's a bit of a theme today, isn't it? That's good. Sam, I'm in your hands.
Well, Angus and everyone, thank you for joining us in week 2 of our 3-week super series of education. We had a great seminar last week with Manu Villani on how to increase case conversion with sedation. And if you missed that one, it'll be coming out in our Profitable Practice Partners series on Thursday. And I thought it was excellent and a lot of really open and clear points on where sedation fits into the dental industry now. My name's Sam Martin. I'm the brand manager at Gunns Dental, and I'm proud today to co-host with Angus Pryor, who I'll introduce in a second, but doesn't need any introduction, to part 2 of our 3 weeks of education, how to recession-proof your practice in 6 simple steps, and a 2-part series, this one. So we'll have series 1 today, and then we'll jump on again next week and get into series 2. Few house rules before we start. Participation. Please participate in the questions during the seminar. It makes it a heap easier for Angus, and the more interactive we make it, the better it is. If you have any questions, enter them through the Q&A section. 2 little chat bubbles down the bottom there, or chat. Q&A is a bit easier. It comes up on Angus's feed and he can answer it in due course where it fits into the course. So Gunns Dental, quick plug for Gunns, is we're founded in 1936 and we're a privately owned business. So Trevor Martin and Pete O'Leary are both the co-owners of Gunns Dental based in Australia. And I'm related to Trevor by birth, not choice, as his son and part of the family business as well. We're importer and distributor across Australia and New Zealand, and we're passionate about helping dental professionals provide the best possible care. So without further ado, Angus Pryor will introduce. He's a multi-award-winning practice growth specialist and an OK drummer. Angus Pryor is an author, marketer, and international speaker. And after more than a decade working alongside a range of healthcare professionals, Angus has entered the dental marketing space in 2014. In 2020, if you haven't seen it, Angus is really good on the social media, reminding everyone on how good he's doing. Angus won the marketing agency and was recognised by the highly covered marketing award from the ADIA. And it has recently been awarded a finalist in the local business awards. Angus is also an Amazon #1 best-selling author for his book, which you can purchase on Amazon, The Dental Practice Profit Systems 5 steps to higher patience and higher profits. Angus has far more qualifications and I'll take you through them. So without further ado, Angus, over to you, and looking forward to our hour lunch and learn with you and learning how to recession-proof our practice.
Thanks, Sam. Yes, you better put your... Yeah, there we are. Look, it's a pity that I didn't have Sam and Trevor on here video-wise, because I tell you, the two of them together are world-class sledges. I'm actually surprised that Sam even knows that I play the drums or has even seen me, but there you go. By the way, a special hello to Frederick, who's typed into the chat, who's coming from Fielding in rural New Zealand. Now, Frederick, it might surprise you, but I actually know where that is. I started school in Palmerston North in New Zealand, and Fielding's not that far away. So he fractured his arm last week. I'm sorry to hear that, but thank you for chatting anyway. Yes, look, for everyone else, please, if you get a chance, just type in where you're coming in from. Otherwise, I'm going to share my screen. I'll keep a close eye on the chat. I'm going to ask you a number of questions. I really appreciate the participation. Let's get cracking. If you wouldn't mind, just to get the participation up and running, can you please type into the chat that you can see my screen okay? If you can do that, that would be very helpful. Hopefully you can see my screen, because otherwise I'm going to be wasting my time there. Just type that into the chat, please. Much appreciated. That's good. All right, we've got someone raising their hand. That'll do. Thanks, Marcus. Okay. All right, let's get cracking. Recession-proofing your practice in 6 simple steps. Thanks. We got everyone there. Now I've got it's recording, which is good. So this is the purpose of our time together. I want to help you understand the psychology of recession. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but I think it's fair that we understand where we find ourselves. I'm going to help you build your strategy for dominating your local area. I'm going to show you that there, even in times of downness, there are opportunities, and I want to talk about those. And then finally, to give you tactical options to implement immediately. So what I would normally get you to do live, and I'm just going to have to trust that you're doing this. Frederick, you get a leave pass because I don't think you can write too well at the moment. I either want you to say it out loud or actually type it in, take action now. And the reason I say that is because I'm going to show you some stuff, but as I've said pretty much every time I present, you know, information is not power. Applied information is power. I'm not here today to, you know, sort of push my own barrow. I'm here to help you, but I can only help you if you take action. And what I'm hoping is during this presentation, you'll be listening, kind of going, oh, I'm looking for something that I can take action on. So that's the go there. Now, our agenda, a little bit of an intro and some background. I'm going to cover about how to stand out. We'll talk about the key to marketing in 2020-21. The one place you cannot ignore, and then I've got time for questions at the end. No doubt Sam will want to ask me more about my drumming ability. So this is the point. Oh, there we are. That's good. I just didn't have that going for a minute. So I've got polls here. Where is my poll? Ah, there it is, polls. Okay. Just going to launch the poll. If you wouldn't mind, just fill it in for me what your role is while I show the video panel. That's good. So hopefully that poll's up. It only goes fairly quickly. So if you wouldn't mind, just type in. It's always helpful for me to know who's in the room. Thank you. Yes, this is great. You don't need... I don't think I'm asking you to give away any big secrets here. Just tell me what your role is. That just helps me to pitch the presentation. Now, come on, I know there's a bunch of people lurking here. Thank you for you others who are typing in what you do. It's really helpful if you can give me the feedback. And by the way, I know one of you's typed in other. Would you mind typing into chat what that other is? Just wait, I think you've got another 13 seconds to vote. So come on, everyone, we're up to 55%. This is good. Just for other, if you wouldn't mind typing into the chat what you do. Excellent, more and more votes coming in. Thank you for that. I've done one of these, well, I've done a number of these with Guns before, but the other, at least on one occasion, was an owner. So, all right, I think that's almost the end of the poll. Thank you, 66%. Based on previous history, I'll take that. going to end the polling there. So I can tell you that it's mainly principal dentists. There's some associates, and then we've got an other. That's good. All right. So look, a little bit of background about me. I know some of you have, heard me present before, so I'm not going to do that. Not spend a long time doing that. Look, a few things to note. One is I'm a father and a grandfather. Believe it or not, that's my granddaughter on the left there. She is gorgeous. I know, you don't need to tell me. And I have played this video before, assuming it's going to behave today, but for 30 seconds, I thought this is a bit of fun. This is me sitting on the ground listening to an old song from the 80s. And my granddaughter at that time, she could only crawl. And this is all completely spontaneous. I hope it works. Let's see.
You're so funny.
To this day, I don't know where that came from. Oops. She didn't have any siblings or anything she just spontaneously decided to dance, which is a good way of melting a grandfather's heart. Okay, so I've got a master's degree in marketing. Sam already mentioned I need to update this 10 plus years. It's certainly a lot. International speaker, #1 Amazon best-selling author, winner of the Australian Dental Industry Association 2020 Marketing Award, quoted on ABC, Fox and CBS. And the truth is as though I haven't blown my own trumpet enough, Sam, we are finalists in 2 awards at the moment. I'm waiting to find out in the next month. One's the Local Business Awards, and the other one's presented by the Premier, Western Sydney Awards for Business Excellence. So we're really proud of that. All right, a little bit more about my background. So here's the drummer part. Yes, I was a drummer. It was my first job out of school. I can tell you that is a tough way to make a living. Thank you, by the way. I've just seen Vanessa's comment here, dental prosthetist. All right, so I worked there and I realised that's a tough way to make a living, so I became a diplomat. I served the Australian government for 7 years overseas. Then I became a developer. That's, believe it or not, one of my property developments in the background there. And then if you allow a little bit of poetic license, I became a drug pusher. And it was during that time working in the pharmaceutical industry, these were of course legal drugs, that it just got me to thinking, well, maybe I could be a marketer. I'd finished my MBA, majoring in marketing. I'd been studying digital marketing for another 5 years. And that led to the establishment of me as a dental marketer and establishing this business. Now, the truth is that we've been doing a number of services under the name of Angus Pryor for a while, but we are launching Dental Marketing Solutions brand. In fact, for some of you, you would have actually voted on the name at a previous one of these sessions. Thank you, Frederick. You still look so good. And so we are about helping dentists win in business and life. And it's just one of those things. I mean, I sincerely want to help you win in business. It's taken me 50 plus years to figure out what I'm on this planet for. And it's to help people win, to grow personally and to grow in business. So these are the sort of services that we provide. Masterminds for our elite clients. We do consulting one-on-one with practices, training like this one. And then search engine optimization, AdWords, and websites. I say that to say this. This is not something I dabble in my spare time. This is my full-time gig. So let's crack straight into it then. What is a recession? Now, just for the guys who I'm pretty sure, some of you would be aware of a TV show called Have You Been Paying Attention? And the truth is that one of the panelists, a couple of them come in from New Zealand, and I think I'm right in saying that New Zealand's just technically gone into recession as well. I think they said for the first time in 10 years or 30 years or something. Anyway, so let's look at what a recession is. This is from the Oxford Dictionary. a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced, generally identified by a fall in gross domestic product in 2 successive quarters. And that's certainly what's happened in Australia. There was a fall around the time, I think it would be Q1 this year, and then a fall in Q2, you know, right in the middle of COVID at that time. And my assumption is that that's the same thing that's happened in New Zealand. Well, that's all well and good, but what actually happens in a recession? Now, the truth is that there's a change in income for some families. You know, if we spend our time watching the news, you could be forgiven for thinking that, you know, the entire country or countries are out of a job. And that's simply not the case. If you look at the 2 unemployment figures, this is Australian data. I'm sorry, I don't have the New Zealand data here. In August 2019, 5.3% unemployment. And in August 2020, 6.8% unemployment. But this is a factor, but that is not the factor. What is the factor that happens in a recession? And it's the change in confidence and behaviour. This is called consumer sentiment. Now, this is as deep as I'm going to go on economics. I did do some economics at high school. But it's that change in confidence and behaviour. That's the thing. I mean, if you look at the actual data, this is the reality. Like 93.2% of Australians have still got a job. Now, we don't know what's going to happen post-JobKeeper in Australia. I'm not sure what the situation is in New Zealand. But I will never forget going to the US right in the middle of the global financial crisis. And as you'd be aware, the US got absolutely hammered. Their economy, you know, worst unemployment rates ever. And I flew to Las Vegas and landed one Friday evening. And I could have been forgiven for thinking that there'd be the tumbleweeds going across the street, that there wouldn't be a soul around. But the truth of the matter was life goes on, you know. Yes, some people have got less employment. I'm not poo-pooing that. I just, you know, we just need to keep this in balance, because the fact is that from the media's point of view, bad news sells. And so if it's, you know, employment is down by 0.5%, they're going to, you know, shout it from the rooftops. But 93.2% of Australians have still got a job. The other thing that I thought was interesting is not all business retracts during a recession. Now, here are some examples of businesses that have actually gone gangbusters this year. Partly recession, partly COVID. Alcohol, better or worse, alcohol sales are up. Headphones, surprise, surprise. Home delivery, home repair. When I go to Bunnings, by the way, the Kiwis in the audience, can you just put a yes or a no? Is Bunnings in New Zealand as well? When I go to Bunnings, I always chat to the staff there because I want to know what's going on. And the feedback from Bunnings is they are super busy. It's a big hardware store in Australia. Online shopping, virtual appointments, Zoom, you know, the list goes on and on. So what happens is behaviour changes. Good. Okay, Frederick says, yes, they've got Bunnings in New Zealand as well. There you go. But you see, with this time of recession and COVID, you know, we ever see the end of that? Here's a quote from John F. Kennedy. When written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of 2 characters. One represents danger, the other represents opportunity. Here's a quote from Ryan Reynolds. Any kind of crisis can be good. It wakes you up. What we see is change at this time. Now, this list that I'm showing you here, I just want to set the scene. These are all businesses, I dare say you've heard of some of them, that were launched during a recession. The thing about a recession is it causes us to reevaluate. You know, when things are going well, there's not much that we need to reevaluate. We just sort of keep on sailing on through. But as you can see, all of these businesses, which are massive, Apple's the biggest company in the world now. I think it's got a market valuation of almost $1 trillion. And all of those happened during a recession. So I just want to set the scene. You know, frankly, stop watching the news. It is not good for our mental health and it's not good for our mindset. We have an expression in my office. What does this situation make possible? All right, with that intro, let's talk about how to stand out. Now, one of the challenges that you face as a dentist if you don't stand out is that you can be seen as a commodity. I told you I wasn't going to do any more economics. Here's a teeny little bit now. In relation to a commodity. So a commodity is a basic good used in commerce that is, and here's the key bit, interchangeable with other commodities of the same type. Just type into the chat. So if the consumer considers product A is interchangeable with product B, then what does that mean? What is the impact? How do they choose A over B? If they think A and B are interchangeable, how do they choose A over B? Just type that into the chat if you don't mind, please. Thank you, Frederick. It's on price, isn't it? Like, what else have they got to go with? They go, oh, well, thank you, Marcus. Now, here are some examples of commodities. Gold, meat, oil, wheat. I don't really care what brand of wheat I get, like A or B, whichever's price. The problem is, if we're not careful, if we don't stand out in dentistry, then dentistry can be seen as being a commodity, and we absolutely don't want that. So that's kind of the backdrop. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of ideas for how to stand out here, and then we're going to get more practical. First of all, some of you have seen this before, but it's worth covering and it's worth revisiting. In marketing, we have this concept called an avatar. Some of you are thinking about this blue person, but the avatar is a euphemism, another word for an ideal client. So question for me is, who here thinks they know? By the way, we've got some people who've raised their hand. I must admit, we've got some things, there we are, that's good. Got some things that are just going a little bit funny with Zoom here, but we'll keep moving on. Who here thinks they know who their avatar is? Now, a couple of people have raised their hand, and I'm going to assume that means you know who they are. If you wouldn't mind just typing into the chat, just tell us one or two things about your avatar. I mean, for example, is it more likely to be a male or a female? What sort of age bracket are they? And I'll go into the details later. I'll keep going while I watch the chat over here. Now, we've got a couple of cars here. Just to help you understand, okay, well done, Marcus. He knows who his avatar is. Okay, family, especially retirees, that's good. Yeah, look, and the more detailed you can know who that is, the better. I just want to make this point with this slide. We have two cars here. They're both Toyotas. They've both got four wheels. They've both got four doors. They've both got a steering wheel, and yet they're completely different cars. The Hilux is the #1 selling car in Australia for the last 3 years, and the Corolla is the #3 selling car. An ideal buyer for a Hilux, tradie, you know, maybe farmer. Maybe I should find out if Sam's got a Hilux, because as well as working for Gunz, he also runs a farm. And if he doesn't have a Hilux, he's probably got a competitor vehicle. Corolla, on the other hand, tends to be older or younger. You know, there's a number of things that are similar about these, but the fact is they're completely different vehicles. And the question you've got to ask yourself for your practice is, what are we offering? Are we a Hilux? Are we a Corolla? Are we a Maserati? Are we an entry-level Kia or whatever? And the better that you can market your practice to your ideal client, this looks like Hai Leng. I can see you've raised your hand. If you've got a question, let me just see if I've got anything sitting in the chat here. If you've got a question, just type it into the chat. Here's the thing, sometimes practices are like, oh, Angus, but everyone's my ideal client. And if you look at your data, I can assure you that is not the case. I think I've got an example later on here. But this is the point. If you market your services to your ideal client, they will buy more. If you have a look at ads in Australia for Hilux, it tends to be a 30-something guy. He looks like a bit of a tradie. With the Corollas, they're generally advertising to younger people, and it's because they buy more, but it doesn't stop these other people from buying. A 20-year-old girl can still buy a Hilux. So this is the way you figure it out if you've not done this. And even if you've done it previously, it's worth doing again. You run a report in the system. It's very simple. Total spend per client over the past 12 months. You sort from high to low and you identify your top 20 or 30 clients. And then you look for the common characteristics. Now, will there be some variation? Yes, there will. But we're looking for the sort of themes. Yeah, some of your biggest spenders are going to be in their 20s and some might be in their 60s, but there's a bit of a concentration in this place. It tends to be more women than men. Some practices, it's a bit of an even one. These are the things for you to look at. Once you've done that, then I encourage you to give your avatar a name, because the more you talk about the avatar when you're considering the services you offer, anytime you want to make a change, anytime you want to do new marketing, give them a name. And then what it allows you to do is to leverage your unique advantage. Remember, if your avatar wants a Hilux, then you guys need to be a Hilux. Now, the fact of the matter is, these people have already voted with their wallets at your practice. If it's the person who spent the most money in your practice, they trust you, they like your services. So let's speak back to them and get more and more of them. And the exercise I recommend you go through is you look through their eyes. Imagine your avatar as Betty. You look through their eyes and you say, what does Betty love about our practice? What are her fears and how do we address them? What would Betty think's a great experience? What services would she like to see? And the better you can zoom in on that, the better. But here's a crazy thing, and I've done this so many times, it doesn't surprise me anymore, but it sure did. The first time we looked through the avatar's eyes at the practice, there was one thing that avatars never, ever mention when they're talking about all those things on the previous slide. Just type into the chat, what's the one thing that your avatar never mentions about your practice? It might surprise you. I know some of you have seen this before. All the things that Betty... Money, okay, that's an interesting point. Sometimes money comes up, Frederick. The one thing I can tell you that your avatar never mentions is dentistry. I mean, if you think about it, if your avatar is having a chat to her friends, about your practice, she never says, oh, wow, I love the way that the dentist holds the drill. I love the way that the suction goes. Like, these guys are amazing at suction. Like, it just doesn't happen. What happens is your avatar, and the reason is very simple, because dentistry is very hard for your avatar to differentiate, and it's hard for them to measure. They don't actually know, of everybody who's on this call, they have no objective way of knowing who's the best dentist. The great news is it allows you to be yourself and forget generic, and I'm going to show you in a second some examples of what you can do. Now, here is one where we figured out who the avatar was. We did that exercise with a team. Close your eyes, imagine you're the avatar. What do you love about this practice? What do you tell your friends about it? This one, discover a dentist that will have you feeling a bit special from the moment you walk in. Help you build healthier habits for a better lifestyle for you and your family. Build a trust and connection that means you feel safe and relaxed each time you visit. And that is a completely different statement to what you might find at a different practice. One of the insights from this practice, which was a more affluent area in Sydney's northern suburbs, was that for this avatar, coming to the dentist was a bit like getting her hair and her nails done. It was part of her health and beauty routine. And that can be very different depending on where you are and who your ideal client is. Now, if you think I'm banging on about avatar a bit much, here's a quote from a dentist in Queensland. Truly understanding my ideal client and where I should be targeting my marketing and business efforts is incredibly valuable. This exercise alone is probably worth $100,000 a year to me. And I would say absolutely, because otherwise it means you stop wasting effort on stuff that your ideal client doesn't value. Now, the most extreme case I've ever seen, I worked with a client once where we looked at how much money their top 30 patients had spent with them. And that ended up being 3%. So they had 1,000 active patients. The practice wasn't that old. So 3%. 30 patients accounted for 40% of their turnover in a 12-month period. Like, not all clients are created equal. That's why it's important. Figure out who the best ones are, target them, you can grow your business dramatically. All right, anybody come across this guy? Just put a yes or a no in the chat if you don't mind. A guy called Mike Michalowicz. He's an author. Very good book called Profit First. I think Fix This Next is his most recent book, Clockwork, The Pumpkin Plan. Fairly prolific author. If you do nothing else from today, read Profit First. It's a game changer for your business. He has a quote about this, about standing out. Different is better. And as we've discussed, the problem for our clients is that they think all dentists are the same. Whereas for us to be able to stand out and attract better clients, we've got to show ourselves as being different. Now, the truth is I got to meet Mike in Australia last year, and here's a statement from him, which we're just going to unpack a little bit. To stand out, you need to find your EST strategy, your EST. What the heck does that mean? And it's a word that finishes in EST. Now, I've got some examples here. I'm not saying all of these could be used in dentistry, but let's have a look. We could be the newest, we could be the nicest, the largest, the smallest, the quietest, the fastest, the gentlest, the cleanest, the friendliest, whatever the case may be. If you've got an EST there that your clients value, then that's a great way for you to stand out. Remember, different is better. Now, some of you are thinking, well, how the heck do we demonstrate that we're the gentlest or the cleanest or the friendliest? I mean, if you engaged me as your marketer, I'll give you some free advice now. I would do a survey with your patients and say, I mean, this needs to be true to who you are. But, I would put, I'll just make this up, Auckland's gentlest dentist. And then I'd put a little asterisk. And then I'd say, based on a survey of 200 clients during this time, they said that not the cheapest. Yeah, I don't like cheapest either, Frederick. And we surveyed 200 clients, and they said of every dentist they've ever been to in their whole life, we found you guys were the gentlest. Nobody can independently measure, but as long as you qualify what the statement is, it's powerful for people. What is your EST? Now, just to show you that I practice what I preach, I heard Mike's presentation, and so this is a product that we've introduced. This is Australia's, and yes, it would be New Zealand's as well, Australia's fastest Google boost for dentists guaranteed. We're going for fastest, because we guarantee a 15% boost in your Google in 90 days, or you pay nothing. So we're using this ourselves. Although I had a chat with a dentist yesterday, and I said, we guarantee our outcomes, and by the way, we don't insist on contracts. Different is better. For you as a dentist, it's not going to be about your dentistry, because people can't tell which is better or worse, but it's a matter of finding another EST that you can use. Do a little survey or whatever so you can qualify what your statement is, and then I would say go for it. All right, so that's some ideas of how to stand out. Let's have a look at the key to marketing in 2020-21. Again, with apologies to the guys in New Zealand, this is some Australian data. I've never seen this from New Zealand. Let's set the scene. The playing field. So this is a study, this was in the Australian Dental Journal, and they found that 49% of Australians suffer from dental anxiety. Essentially half the population has somewhere between low and an extreme fear of going to the dentist. I dare say this data would be pretty similar in New Zealand. In fact, it would be pretty similar globally. So that's part of the playing field. Here's another part of the playing field. Consumers experience between 2,000 and 5,000 commercial messages a day. When you think about ads, whether that's on TV or radio, or you're driving in the traffic and you see signage, or you see something on someone's car, or, there's thousands and thousands of commercial messages that we experience every day. Now, for you to attract new patients, for you to become recession-proof, the goal is to be maximizing what we call the touch points, and more now than ever before. Just curious, anybody recognize that image? It worked for me, but what movie is that from? Type that into the chat. We'll see who's first. Am I the only person who recognises this image? Well done. Okay, yes, we've got a couple of yes. It's from E.T. If you're younger than about 40, you probably don't know what that is. The extraterrestrial. Okay, so what is a touch point? It's any contact with anything to do with your practice. A word of mouth referral is a touch point. A social media post is a touch point. An ad on radio, TV, billboard, your website, anything, any reference to your practice at all is a touch point. And I'm going to explain to you in a minute why this is so important. You remember this image? All of these messages, bang, 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 2,000 to 5,000 commercial messages a day. Well, previously the data showed it was about 5 to 7 touch points before someone would make an appointment with you. The newest data suggests that's between 10 and 20 touch points. And what's happening from all this noise, all of these commercial messages, is that it's harder and harder to get your message through. So what it means is we need to be rapidly increasing our touch points for someone to do business with us. Now, I've got a quote here. Let's see. The most effective marketing for dental practices in 2021 is not one thing, but an aggregate of many things. Any idea who that quote was from? Just give you a chance. And the answer, it's very famous person, it's me. So the most effective marketing, it's not one thing. If we've got to get to 10 or 20 touch points, that is hard to do using just one thing. When I'm consulting with clients, what I'm going for is what I call local omnipresence. I want the practice to be everywhere. I want them to be strong in Google. I want them to run a referral system. I want them to be making videos and putting them everywhere. Social media presence, partnering with local businesses, strong external signage, using aggregate websites, internal marketing, client testimonials, business awards. The list goes on and on. Maximizing those touch points. Remember, you've got half the population that's scared of going to the dentist, and you've got 10 to 20 touch points we need because there's so much noise coming from everywhere else. So in my view, this is, and this is not just my opinion, this is based on the work that I've done with dentists certainly all over the country, and some international ones as well. This is what I find works best. All right, which leads me to this, the one place you cannot ignore. Now, some of you look at that slide and you want to say something like this: please, Angus, just give us one thing to focus on. And so if you force me to pick on one, I'm going to pick on this one. I'm not saying the others are not important. I remember multiple touch points, but I think this is, if you just want to focus on one thing, this would be it. And I want to just unpack this a bit, because some of you go, oh, well, Google, you know, thanks for that, I know all about it. Well, let's see. So here's some myths about Google. Who knows? Maybe you believe some of them. Google's not that important. Well, the latest data I've seen suggests is about 25 million searches every day in Australia. And I'm going to assume, I think the New Zealand population is about 10% of Australia, maybe 15%. So therefore, if we assume same levels of, you know, internet usage, and I have no reason to believe it wouldn't be, 5 mil, okay, so if NZ's 5 mil and Australia's approximately 25, so 20%. So yes, that would be 5 mil, yes. All right, Google hasn't changed that much. Google is still growing at 10% per annum. Like, if you felt like we were somehow at saturation point, that is not the case. Google is 50% larger, probably slightly more so with an exponential point of view, than it was 5 years ago. Like, the only thing that's happening is the importance is increasing every year. Google is just one system. No, it's not. There are 4 key systems, and I'm going to show you those in a minute. We've got Google covered. And I'm going to say to you respectfully, you probably don't. You know, most practices I speak to, they go, yeah, we're doing, you know, we're fine, Angus, we're doing some stuff on Google. And I just want to break it down for you so you can understand how it all works. So Google systems. The first one is Google Ads. If I were to pull up my computer, my web browser now and do dentist near me, the first thing that I would see would be a Google ad. Most of us are fairly familiar with those. The next thing that you'd see would be Google Reviews. That's a separate system. Then you've got the Google Map, and in fact, the Google Map links to the Google Reviews. And then the fourth system is what we'd call organic listings. You know, that's the 10 listings. That's kind of where it all started for Google. So there are actually 4 separate systems there. And you may be doing well on one, but you're probably not doing well on all 4. Let's start with Google Ads. It used to be called AdWords. So Google changed the name of it in the last 6 months or so. And where Google Ads appears in a search result is at the top. It's the very first thing that you see. We'll have one listing on the map as well. So if you, let's say we're doing Sydney City, if I search for a dentist there, on the map will be 3 dentists and then 1 ad for another dentist. And then depending on how competitive a space is, there'll be more ads at the bottom of the page as well. So Google Ads are very strongly represented. The way that it works, if you've never used them before, is it's pay per click. You don't pay for the ads to show, you only pay when someone clicks on them. Now, if I were to give you the bottom line on Google Ads, my verdict is it's worth testing. The one benefit of Google Ads is you'll get immediate results. It doesn't take any time. You know, it's negligible the time to get set up. Usually about 90 days to optimize. One of the things that we do when we're working on Google Ads is we're making sure that your ads are not showing up where they shouldn't be. For example, if you're maybe dabbling in this yourself and you say, I'll tell you what, I want my ad to show up every time someone searches for dentist, that you could be wasting money there, because if someone says which universities offer dentist qualifications, well, I don't want my ad showing up there. I only want people who's, you know, or how much does a dentist earn? I don't want my ad showing up there. That's called negative keywords. Now, it is pay per click, and depending on where you are, that can be a bit expensive, but what that means is you've got to assess your return. I mean, if you're generating high value clients using this, then it could be well worth it. So that's what I'd say about Google Ads. However, I've got a little explosion here for you. This is, and I can tell you what I'm about to tell you now, I have never revealed in a training anywhere. This is the first time I've mentioned this, and this is absolutely hot off the press. It's a combination, and let's talk about that. The combination of growing your Google reviews, you're probably aware of the importance of that, but it's a combination of that and boosting your map presence that is dynamite. And I have seen this with our clients in the last 6 months. If you can really boost your Google reviews and you can make sure you're on the map, because frankly, if you've got hundreds of Google reviews, but you don't appear on the map in your local area, like who's ever going to see them? And having lots of reviews is no guarantee to get on the map. I'll talk more about that in a second. But we've had a couple of clients who have achieved this in the last few months, and it's been dynamite. I had someone who was struggling with less than 10 new patients a month. They got their Google reviews up over 100. Yes, 100 Google reviews. And suddenly they found themselves getting 30 new patients a month. We've managed to get them onto the map. Their Google reviews were higher. In relation to Google reviews, this is what I would want for you. I want for you not just to be a little bit higher than the other dentists in your area. I want you to be miles higher, so that for someone who doesn't know anybody about the dentist in that area, they have a look and they go, well, I can tell who the best dentist is. That's the kind of magnitude that we want. Like if your competitors have got 5 Google reviews or 10 Google reviews, I'd like to see you with 100 or 50, because a combination of being on the map and having those high reviews, from what I've seen in the last few months, is dynamite. So definitely worth doing. So this begs the question, how do you do it? Now, the first thing is you've got to ask clients for Google reviews. Let's just sort of address the elephant in the room. Two comments. Firstly, let's talk about APRA in Australia. I did look this up in New Zealand for a previous Gordon's presentation. I'm not aware of anything in the New Zealand Dental Board policy that says you can't promote this. APRA is a little bit wishy-washy on this issue. Part of the APRA policy says, and I'm going to quote this for you verbatim. So to clarify, healthcare professionals are not responsible for having removed or seeking to have removed reviews from patients on websites they don't control. Now, as far as I know, none of you control Google, and therefore you're not responsible. Having said that, I would be building your Google reviews by straight out asking your clients for it in practice. I think it's totally fine, but I wouldn't be sticking that on your website, just saying. So that's the first thing. You've got to ask your clients for Google reviews and do that in a systematic way. The next thing you need to do is be implementing something called search engine optimization. Now, the fact is that getting lots of Google reviews, while it's helpful for where you show up in Google, it's not the thing that's going to get you on the map. The thing that's going to get you on the map is SEO. And you get a double banger, because what happens is SEO will boost your presence on the map so that people can see all of those reviews you've got, and it will also boost your presence in the organic listings. So you get two for the price of one. The organic listings, which is where it all started, those 10 search results from Google, then it'll also boost you on the map. Our latest data shows that being on the map, for practices that appear well on the map, they can get as much as 60% of their traffic via the map and about 40% through organic. So this is really worth doing. Now look, if you go, that's good, Angus, but we don't have any SEO and I don't know what to do, then it would be remiss of me not to mention this is a service we offer. I'm certainly not going to pitch, but you remember our EST? And so we guarantee the fastest Google boost for dentists in Australia. I take the view, I'm telling you this is how you should be promoting your business. Maybe not the fastest dentist in Australia, but one of those EST terms. And this is what we do in relation to a Google boost. Just quickly, this is how it works, and then we'll keep moving on. So if you go to anguspryor.com/fastest, there's no cost or anything. You just type in your details. We need to check out if you're eligible. Not everybody on this call is eligible. You put your details there. We're not going to spam you or anything. We just need to do a legitimate test and find out whether you're eligible. If you qualify and you go ahead, we'll set baseline data from Google. So it's not our data, it's Google's data. We'll say this is your baseline traffic. We then measure that every month over 90 days and demonstrate for you a 15% boost. Now, if we don't demonstrate that boost in 90 days, then it's free. You don't pay anything at all. So we really, results count, don't they? I mean, talk's cheap, but results count. So not only is it fastest, it's actually guaranteed. And as I mentioned, SEO will also, of course, help you on the map and also on the organic. I hope that makes sense. All right, so let's summarize. We talked a bit about recession and the fact that there are some businesses that go up during recession, and I really hope that's the case for you guys. We've spoken about two different techniques for standing out. One is about, and you should do this regardless, figure out who your avatar is, make sure all of what you do is zeroing in on them. You'll boost your business. The second is considering this EST strategy. The key to marketing in 2020-21 is around that multiple touch points, local omnipresence. Remember, 10 to 20 touch points guarantees. Now, by the way, I've got a question from Frederick here, which is a good question. So in 2021, how important is word of mouth? Look, word of mouth is still important, but I would say it's changed from being kind of perhaps the most important thing to one of the most important, and I'll tell you why. I've got a couple of examples of this, which when the people told me, I was gobsmacked. One was my wife, who had a recommendation from her best buddy at work to go to a healthcare professional. So that's word of mouth. That's an existing client of a healthcare professional, a trusted friend at work. Now, my wife's not a millennial. and she looked up the healthcare professional online, and as a result of checking them out online, decided not to go there. So that's a clear case of a word of mouth referral, which we always assumed was the bee's knees, being trumped by their Google presence. The other one is my daughter-in-law, who at the moment is doing clear aligners. She told me it's $9,000. And she had been going to a dental practice herself, so she had personal experience with it. But she checked to see, so she'd been going to practice, and then she decided she wanted to get aligners. She Googled them, and she said to me, I don't even think she knows what I do. And she said, well, I looked to see the practice that had the best and the most reviews. And as a result of that, pretty much picked up the phone and said, I'd like to book in for clear aligners, and it's going to be $9,000. So the word of mouth is still a factor, and it was one of the 10, local omnipresence things that I mentioned. But I would say what's happening is the reviews, that word of mouth is moving online, and getting your Google reviews up is absolutely critical. It works very well offensively in the sense of my daughter-in-law, and defensively in the case of my wife. All right, the one place you cannot ignore, Google. So let's just recap, and then I'm going to throw it open to Q&A. Help you understand the psychology of recession. Like, honestly, my number one piece of advice there is stop watching the news. Bad news sells. Use other means to find out what's going on in the world, but the news is just going to fill your head with all the negativity. We saw all of those amazing businesses that started during the recession. Secondly, about building the strategy, we've spoken about that idea of local omnipresence. And thirdly, the tactics, which we've talked about, how to stand out, how to boost your Google presence, and so on. So remember, my friends, it's about taking action now. Now, next week, so we talked about 6 simple steps. Today I've covered 3. Next week I'm going to cover the next 3, how to recession-proof your practice. At same time, same place. I don't think we go to daylight savings. I don't think it's next week. I think it's the week after. We will look at 3 lessons we can learn from big business and seamlessly introduce that into your dental practice. We'll look at the mathematical equation that might just be the key to your practice success and sustainability. And then the 4 most wasted words on dental practice websites and what to do instead. I guarantee you some of you have got this on there. All right, well, that's just a reminder. If you wanted to go and get that free eligibility check, anguspryor.com/fastest. Just like, if I can say this, you can relax. It's not going to be the hard sell. That's not how we do business. We just want to find out whether you're eligible or not. We'll set up a call, discuss, no pressure. So that's that. I think Sam's about to come on while we look at some Q&A. Sam, hopefully good. You've got audio. That's good.
Well, while we're waiting for some Q&A, Angus, when I came home last night, I watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, and if any of you on the panel or any of you participants have a chance, have a look at that. And I think it delves into how the algorithms actually work on these social channels, and really shows how you need professionals to help you to aid your business to be able to get the most out of those algorithms and get those more touch points. Is that the
one that that includes interviews with some of Donald Trump's staff?
Yeah, some of Donald Trump's staff and ex-heads of Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and delves into the ethics behind what appears on your newsfeed and your social channels. Ex-analysts from the guy who developed all the Google AdWords, he's one of the guys on there too. So it's just fascinating, the technology and understanding of those algorithms that you need to be able to get those 12 touch points. And if you have a poorly designed campaign, those algorithms aren't going to pick up what you're doing. And you might put a lot of work, but you might only be seen once. And it's not unless you get a properly designed campaign with the understanding how the algorithms work, you're going to get those 12 touch points. So that's where people like Angus come and his team come in real use to your business. So that's why we partner with Angus, and we value what he does, because that understanding. And I think if you have a chance to watch it, I think it opens up the old word of mouth. I know being in agriculture, it's still very important, but I think we're 10 years behind sometimes in the way the world's moved. But as we're going more and more online, I think it gives a really succinct approach, and might be a good one to watch for some homework prior to next week's course. Do we have any Q&A before we want to wrap this up, or are we all pretty happy with today?
No, we'll get people to type that in. I've got a couple here. Look, there's a couple of things I wanted to respond to what you said, Sam. You know, the truth is, when I started this business 6 years ago, even though I'd been studying digital marketing for about 5 years, I was doing the Google ads myself and trying to do the SEO myself. And that whole space, which has changed so dramatically, I would say it's moved out of the realm of the common person. If I can put it this way, I don't practice dentistry in my spare time. I don't say to my friends and family, hey, if you've got a sore tooth, look, I'll have a crack at that. I've got a pair of vice grips in the garage, let's go. And what's happened with Google and these algorithms is this is now something like a diploma level qualification. I mean, we are certified as Google partners, for example, and it's out of my hands now. My team does it for me, and one of my team members has to do essentially an exam to be able to demonstrate the competence, because the complexity has grown enormously. I don't know whether any of you are doing your own tax. Stop! You know, get an expert to do that. It's a similar sort of thing. The other thing that I forgot to mention, with those 10 to 20 touch points, the reason why the combo of SEO and Google reviews is so helpful is because if you can get on the map and you've got a bunch of Google reviews, each individual review can become a touch point. In other words, people read through and they go, so like whack, you know, in 5 minutes, they can have 10 reviews from 10 different people, so they know that it's not you just talking about yourself. And they can go from sort of 0 touch points to ready to make an appointment in a very short space of time. That's part of the reason that system's so dynamic and how it works so well. Now look, Sam, I've got one question that's come through here about the avatar. And this is an interesting one because I do get this from time to time. So the question is, but Angus, if I focus on my business promoting to my avatar, what about the people who are not my avatar? And I suppose I could flick back through the slides, but I just make this observation. If you remember the example, I've even got a whiteboard here, Sam. I'll tell you what. Is
this one you prepared earlier, Angus?
No, it's blank. I use these all the time. Let's do this. So this was the example I had of a client, and when I saw this data, I was like, oh my goodness! Like the risk is trying to be all things to all people is a recipe for disaster. It means you don't make anyone happy. And so for this business, we looked at what was their top 30 clients, which was 3%. It was 30 people. And that was covering like 40% of their business from 30 people. So Sam, you're a very bright individual. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. If you've got 1,000 active patients, Trevor, shut up. If you've got 1,000 active patients and 30 of them are generating 40% of your business, and we could duplicate those 30, that's, you know, these high value patients, if we could duplicate them exactly, how much would your business grow by in the next 12 months? So we've got the same 1,000 and all we're going to do is duplicate these guys. So an extra 30 patients, how much would your business grow by in the next 12 months? 40%. Correct answer, Sam.
40%.
Did you hear the ventriloquism, everyone? It was great. So if you've got 1,000 active patients and we're just going to add an extra 30, but they're these 30 super high value ones. So we're moving from 1,000 active patients to 1,030. How much extra rent do you think you'd need to pay to move from 1,000 patients to 1,030? How much extra rent would you need to pay?
Well, you could just get rid of your bottom 30%. customers
I would say
don't have to
no
pay any
extra
more
rent. No extra rent. And how many extra hours of your staff time would you need to pay to go from 1,000 active patients to 1,030 active patients? How much extra labour would you need to pay? Nothing.
Zero.
So no extra rent. Any extra electricity for these extra 30 people?
No.
No, I mean, like, and yet 40% of your business. Now, I know this is a kind of a, you know, it's an extreme example, but I just make the point that, you know, by focusing on your ideal clients, you know, who wouldn't like a 40% growth in the next 12 months by taking on an extra 30 people? So anyway, that's the point I make. Yes, as Frederick says, you just need 120 of those new patients and happy days.